My husband, 55 years old, and I, 55 years old, have two biological daughters, one aged 31 years old and the other 29 years old. 16 years ago, we began fostering and took in Sally, 30 years old when she was 16. We were aware that she had a history of intimacy abuse but did not have many details and did not pressure her to discuss it. Nonetheless, we made every effort to assist and treat her equally to our biological children. On a couple of occasions, my husband thought she was flirting with him, but he dismissed it as a misunderstanding. However, when she was 17, she inappropriately touched him. He immediately put a stop to it, and she apologized. After informing me about the incident, we had a conversation with her, explaining that her behavior was entirely inappropriate. She apologized again, stating that she did not know what she was thinking. We then arranged for her to see a therapist and ensured that my husband would not be alone with her unless necessary. Although one might expect us to contact the social worker and have her placed in a different home, she only had a few months left until her graduation and would be dorming in college. Consequently, we believed it was best not to disrupt her life too much during this final period. We informed her that she could still return home during breaks, and she had a positive relationship with our other daughters. One day, while she was home on break at the age of 20, she approached my husband while he was getting a midnight snack in the kitchen and removed her shirt in front of him. We called her out on this behavior and told her she had to leave. Following that incident, we informed her that she was no longer welcome in our home. However, we agreed to continue providing financial support until her graduation, not disclose what had transpired to anyone else, and remain cordial if we encountered each other in public, as long as she did the same and stayed on the right path. She apologized and consented to these conditions. Afterward, we rarely saw Sally because she maintained contact with our daughters, who were still good friends with her. I did not want her to lose that support system. However, when we did encounter her, our interactions were limited to small talk at most. A few days ago, Sally called and requested a conversation with my husband and me, explaining that it was of great significance to her and that she wanted to discuss it in person. We agreed, and yesterday we met with her and her husband. After exchanging pleasantries, she began apologizing for everything that had transpired. She opened up about her childhood and how she had experienced intimacy abuse from her father and uncle. Growing up, she believed that such behavior was an expression of love from daughters toward their fathers. With my husband being kind to her and her having a distorted perception of how to behave in a fatherly relationship, she responded in the only way she knew. The conversation was lengthy, and I will not delve into all the details. However, she expressed her awareness of how repugnant and inappropriate her actions had been and conveyed her immense shame. She revealed that she had been engaging in counseling to work on herself and wanted to apologize to us in person for everything she had done. After much crying on both sides, she shared that she and her husband were expecting a child. She wanted us to be involved in their lives as grandparents, as well as rebuilding trust with us and earning our forgiveness. My husband informed her that he forgave her a long time ago, and I echoed the sentiment. While I hold no ill will toward her, I believed that it would be best for us to maintain some distance. I felt that too much had transpired, making it difficult to move beyond these issues. Sally began sobbing, and I felt terrible. Her husband became upset with me, emphasizing the courage she had mustered to approach us, open up, and seek forgiveness. I completely agreed with him, expressing my deep pride and gratitude for her decision to come to us. However, I believed that both parties were content with our current level of involvement in each other's lives, and thus it should remain that way. Nonetheless, I wished her nothing but the best and assured her that I would always hold love for her in my heart. She was very upset, but she expressed her understanding and gratitude. My husband and I embraced her before they departed. Subsequently, my husband told me that he believed I was mistaken in not giving her another chance. I countered by saying, "Don't you think we need space after everything that has happened in the past?" He responded, "We've had 10 years of space. She is now an adult, and I think it is time for all of us to move on from what she did as a teenager. While I agree that we should move on, I am uncertain whether it is wise to remain involved in each other's lives given everything that has transpired. I acknowledge that my hesitations stem from my personal comfort, but I am unsure if this is the correct decision. So am I the jerk for deciding not to reintegrate our foster daughter into our lives again?" Additional clarification. 1. I am genuinely surprised that my husband wishes to give her another chance. Following the second incident, he wanted to cut off all contact, aside from completing payment for her education, which we had already committed to. However, I believed that cutting her off entirely would be detrimental. Consequently, I made occasional calls to check on her well-being and offered minimal support after her graduation. After that, I informed her that this would be the extent of our direct involvement in her life. 2. My daughters have stated that they do not wish to have children. I believed that it was best not to disclose what had occurred to them to save Sally from any embarrassment. While they remain friends, they are not particularly close. Conversations between them tend to revolve around catching up on each other's lives and occur every few months. 3. Prior to the first incident when Sally was 17, things were going well and we were considering adoption. She had expressed a willingness to pursue this path. However, in hindsight, I believe that the topic of adoption was a trigger for her, given her history with her father. Becoming my husband's legally adopted daughter would have meant that he became her new father figure. Following the incident, we stopped discussing adoption to allow tensions to subside and observe how things would progress. When the second incident occurred, things had nearly returned to normal. I believe that these experiences have contributed to her request for us to be involved as grandparents, as adoption would have made us her real family, with us legally assuming the role of grandparents. 4. I am genuinely thrilled with the progress Sally has made. My husband and I became foster parents because we wanted to provide children with opportunities they might not otherwise have. To some extent, I believe we achieved this by helping her improve her grades and gain admission to a university. Subsequently, we financed her education. When she completed her studies, we aided in her transition into an apartment and assisted her in searching for employment to prevent her from feeling completely adrift. After that, we severed contact and made the decision to go our separate ways out of concern that she might attempt something similar again, or even make false accusations against my husband. I am grateful that she remained on the right path and has achieved success independently. While I do love her, I sometimes believe that it is better to maintain a certain level of distance from someone. I just do not know if this situation warrants such distance. 5. I am unsure about my concerns. They are a jumble of thoughts. Part of me wonders if she has truly changed, while another fears that she has not. Another part worries about the possibility of her making false accusations against my husband, while yet another part believes that she simply longs for love. Lastly, there is a part of me that believes it is too risky to become involved again. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. That poor woman had her entire concept of family twisted and distorted by her abusers. You didn't know that at the time, and neither of you wanted to push, understandably so. She couldn't understand just how wrong she was until now. Trauma and learned behaviors from child intimacy abuse can last decades, even with the best help you can find, so I can't fault her. You aren't exactly comfortable with your husband being around her due to her past actions, which, while needing to view them through the lens of her trauma, is understandable. This is just a sad situation all around. There are no AHs. There's no one walking away happy. I hope you can all find peace. Edit, spelling. Comment 2. If it were me, I'd give it a chance. Your foster daughter displayed textbook signs of childhood intimacy abuse. Like her actions are so classic and predictable, I am not in the least surprised that she did that. You took 10 years of space from her. She came to you now, reaching out for support and love in a very vulnerable moment in her life, trying to build a relationship with the only stable, loving parents she's ever known. I would take steps to protect your husband. He is never alone with her, perhaps, but I would try and build that relationship. She is about to have kids. She needs a mom's, parents she can go to for help. Now for the update. Thank you for reading my last post. After our emotional meeting with Sally and her husband, I spent the next couple of days in a state of confusion. My husband and I had several long conversations about what had happened and what we should do next. He was adamant that we should give Sally another chance, but I was still hesitant. I couldn't shake the memories of the past and the fear that something might go wrong again. 2 days after our meeting, I received a call from our eldest daughter. She had spoken to Sally and heard about the meeting. She was upset that we hadn't told her and her sister about the incidents when they happened. She felt betrayed and hurt that we had kept such significant information from them. I tried to explain our reasoning, but she was too emotional to listen. She hung up, saying she needed time to process everything. Later that evening, our younger daughter called. She was more understanding, but still disappointed. She said she wished we had trusted them enough to share the truth. She also mentioned that Sally had reached out to her, asking for support in rebuilding her relationship with us. Our daughter was torn between her loyalty to us and her friendship with Sally. The next day, my husband and I decided to visit our daughters to discuss everything in person. We felt it was important to address their concerns and explain our decisions. The conversations were difficult, with many tears and raised voices. We apologized for not being more open with them and tried to reassure them that we had acted in what we believed was everyone's best interest at the time. During these discussions, our younger daughter revealed something that took us by surprise. She had recently reconnected with Sally and had been meeting her for coffee and lunch over the past few months. She said that Sally had been open about her past and her efforts to change. Our daughter believed that Sally was genuinely remorseful and had made significant progress in her personal growth. This revelation added another layer of complexity to our situation. As we drove home, my husband and I talked about the possibility of giving Sally another chance. He reminded me of the progress she had made and the support she had from our daughters. He believed that we should at least try to rebuild our relationship with her, even if it was just for the sake of our future grandchild. I was still unsure, but I agreed to consider it. The following day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sally. In it, she poured her heart out, expressing her deep regret for her past actions and her sincere desire to make amends. She acknowledged the pain she had caused and asked for our forgiveness once more. She also shared more details about her childhood and the abuse she had suffered, explaining how it had shaped her behavior and understanding of relationships. Reading her words, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, empathy, and a glimmer of hope. That evening, I sat down with my husband and showed him the letter. We read it together, and I could see the impact it had on him. He was moved by her honesty and vulnerability. We talked late into the night, weighing the pros and cons of letting Sally back into our lives. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we also recognized the potential for healing and growth. The next day, we called Sally and her husband and invited them over for dinner. We wanted to have an open and honest conversation about our concerns and expectations. When they arrived, there was an obvious tension in the air, but we all tried to remain calm and respectful. Over dinner, we discussed our fears and hopes, setting clear boundaries and expectations for our future interactions. Sally was understanding and agreed to our conditions. She promised to respect our boundaries and work on rebuilding our trust. Her husband was supportive and assured us that he would be there to help her through the process. By the end of the evening, we felt a sense of cautious optimism. We knew it would take time and effort, but we were willing to give it a try. In the days that followed, we had several more meetings with Sally and her husband. We took small steps towards rebuilding our relationship, focusing on open communication and mutual respect. Our daughters were also involved, offering their support and encouragement. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt and tension, but we were committed to making it work. As we navigated this new chapter in our lives, I couldn't help but reflect on the past and the choices we had made. I realized that my fear and hesitation were rooted in my desire to protect my family, but I also understood the importance of forgiveness and second chances. Sally had made mistakes, but she was also a victim of her circumstances. She had shown tremendous courage in facing her past and seeking redemption. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for kicking my husband out after he made my labor a nightmare? I just gave birth to me and my husband's first and likely last child 4 days ago. I am so emotionally exhausted, but not for the normal reasons, I don't think. My husband has been stressing me out since I went into labor. Please tell me if this is just hormones. I truly can't even think properly because I'm just so tired. So, I go into labor at 2 a.m. He takes his sweet butt time driving me to the hospital an hour away, even stops to grab himself a coffee. My water breaks 20 minutes from the hospital. I'm in excruciating pain and panicked because I'm still in the vehicle, and I can tell that I'm so close to giving birth. I was having contractions lasting 33-ish seconds with exactly 1 minute between. He panics when my water breaks and pulls over and calls the ambulance, and we end up having to wait 10 minutes for them, instead of him just driving me the rest of the way. As soon as I get in the hospital room, he starts losing it. He is sobbing, full hysterics, and being so loud about it. Keeps saying things like, "I can't lose her," insinuating that I was going to die. It essentially made me have a very difficult delivery because now I'm panicked thinking I'm going to die. I deliver our daughter 22 minutes after arriving at the hospital. I eventually call my mother and ask her to come see me. She comes in with my siblings, 16-year-old twins, and within maybe 10 minutes, my husband is acting pissed off, says he's stepping outside, comes back in 40 minutes later. My mom and siblings leave. He then starts jumping down my neck about how disrespectful my mother is for even showing up when she knows that I need sleep. Then he's badgering me about eating something despite me telling him several times I'm not hungry. So he gets irritated again, telling me repeatedly, "You need to eat something," and getting more and more stern as he's speaking. Eventually, I gathered that he was hungry, and he felt guilty eating when I hadn't eaten, and instead of just saying that, he just got an attitude. Then he fell asleep. Every single time he woke up and I was still awake, he got irritated again. "You need to get some damn sleep." We get discharged the next day, so since we have been home, he's stressing me out even more. If the baby spits up, he's immediately saying, "OMG, we need to go to the hospital." He has been trying to force feed me, literally sits beside me trying to feed me when I quite literally cannot keep a lot down right now, and he knows that. But yesterday I fell asleep. I had the baby beside me in the bassinet. He wakes me up and says, "Babe, she's been screaming for 10 minutes. And it makes me feel bad, but then again, he was in the room when I fell asleep, so where was he when she was screaming? He apparently went to take a nap on the couch. But he came home yesterday and I was taking a nap and he says under his breath, "Must be nice, wish I could sleep." I told him at this point that I'm the one who's up all night breastfeeding the baby while he sleeps soundly. I do all nightly changings as well. I have the baby all day long, he works, don't even start. He goes, "No one asked me how I have been feeling since the baby was born." I told him I needed him to leave for a week or something, because this entire time he has been pushing me into a weird state of "I don't freaking like you because of how invasive and demanding you're being, and I'm just really starting to dislike you at this point," which he already knew and he just kept pushing. He says I'm an AH and that he's stressed too and that he's just looking out for me by trying to force me to eat and whatever. I just need space. Am I the idiot? To add, I'm so sorry. I forgot one big thing. Yesterday, he was on the phone with someone telling them my birth story and literally made out like I was hysterical. Mocked my screams to show how I was acting. And that really bothered me, and I told him that, and he said, "You'll really just find anything to be pissed off about right now, won't you?" Or says that he doesn't want people around the baby, but welcomed his mom in not even 10 minutes later because she stopped by unannounced. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot, but you have a lot more issues than just him acting this way. You were screaming in labor, gave birth 22 minutes after you arrived at the hospital after he dragged his feet to get you there, and he's on the phone making fun of you, calling you hysterical, when he is the one who acted like a giant man baby when your mom came at your request. Throw the whole man away. Seriously, you are never going to have a partner from this moment on. Just have a grown-butt adult baby. Comment 2. Well, all I can say is tell him if he doesn't stop, one of you has to leave for a bit. Your mother is just as much the baby's grandmother as his is. Maybe a few weeks of therapy would be good for him, you, or both of you, just to get advice from an unbiased person. However, the fact that he was on the phone imitating you in labor tells me he is taking this way too far. I've never heard of a man telling friends, family what his wife sounded like during labor. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So after we got home from the hospital, things only got worse. My husband has been acting like a complete maniac. He's constantly hovering over me and the baby, and it's driving me insane. He's been trying to micromanage everything I do, from how I feed the baby to how I take care of myself. It's like he doesn't trust me to do anything right, and it's making me feel like I'm losing my mind. The first night home, he insisted on staying up with me, even though I told him I could handle it. Every time the baby cried, he would jump up and start freaking out, saying we needed to take her to the hospital. I kept telling him it was normal for newborns to cry, but he wouldn't listen. He even called his mom in the middle of the night to ask her what to do, which just made me feel even more inadequate. The next day, he started trying to force me to eat again. I told him I wasn't hungry, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He actually tried to spoon-feed me at one point, which was just humiliating. I ended up snapping at him and telling him to back off, but he just got all huffy and said he was only trying to help. Then there was the incident with the baby's spit up. She spit up a little after a feeding, and he went into full-blown panic mode. He started yelling that we needed to go to the hospital right away. I tried to calm him down and explain that it was normal, but he wouldn't listen. He actually started packing a bag for the baby, like we were going on some kind of emergency trip. I had to physically take the bag away from him and tell him to sit down and breathe. Things came to a head 2 days ago when he came home from work and found me napping. He made some snide comment about how nice it must be to sleep all day, which just set me off. I told him that I was the one up all night with the baby while he slept and that I was exhausted. He started going on about how no one cared about how he was feeling and how he was stressed too. I told him that I needed him to leave for a while because I couldn't take it anymore. He called me an AH and said I was being unreasonable, but I stood my ground. Yesterday, he was on the phone with someone telling them about the birth. He made it sound like I was hysterical and mocked my screams. I confronted him about it, and he just brushed me off, saying I was looking for things to be mad about. Then he had the nerve to say he didn't want people around the baby, but let his mom in without even asking me. It's like he has no respect for my feelings or boundaries. I've been thinking a lot about why he's acting this way, and I think it goes back to his childhood. His dad was really strict and controlling, and I think he's trying to emulate that. He's always been a bit of a control freak, but it's gotten so much worse since the baby was born. I think he's scared and doesn't know how to handle it, so he's trying to control everything around him. I also found out something that really shook me. His ex-girlfriend reached out to me on social media and told me that he was the same way with her when they had their first child. She said he was overbearing and controlling, and that it eventually led to their breakup. She warned me to be careful and to stand up for myself, which was both comforting and terrifying to hear. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know how to get through to him, and I'm scared for our future. I love him, but I can't live like this. I need him to understand that his behavior is not okay and that it's pushing me away. I'm considering asking him to go to therapy, but I don't know if he'll agree. He's always been resistant to the idea, but I don't see any other option. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for wanting to work on my truck on Father's Day when my wife wanted a stress-free Mother's Day? I very well could be wrong, and maybe I deserved it, but I can't be sure. I will include both sides of the argument. She does contribute to the household despite not working, so no, I don't want to hear comments about finances. She has plenty of money saved from when she was working prior to giving birth. So for Mother's Day, I had to work. My wife was at home with all 4 of our children all day. Our kids are 13, 10, 9, and 6 months. I had been working for 2 weeks straight at that point and hadn't gotten the opportunity to grab her anything for Mother's Day. So after I got out of work, I went shopping. I got home at 8 p.m. Therefore, her Mother's Day sucked. All she wanted for Mother's Day was alone time where she wasn't needed/wanted at all day. She just wanted to relax without being bothered, basically, and I totally get it. But I had to work. I didn't even get out of work until 6:30 p.m. She did absolutely appreciate the gift I had gotten, something she had said she wanted in passing for a few months. But she said that she was bothered because I could have gotten that gift any other day, and that her one request had been neglected. She wasn't super upset, but unfortunately, she asked for a back rub as a kind of, you can make it up to by doing X type of situation. So I start rubbing her back and fell asleep damn near immediately because I was just exhausted from work and all else. So I kind of botched her day. Fast forward to Father's Day yesterday. I had to work, but only until noon. She asked me what I wanted for dinner that night, but I didn't have a preference. She asked what I wanted to do for Father's Day and suggested some things like bringing the kids fishing or going swimming, and honestly, I didn't want to. All I wanted to do was relax and work on my truck uninterrupted. As soon as I said this, she said, "No, you can hang out with the kids for Father's Day." I asked her why. It's Father's Day after all. Shouldn't I be able to get what I want? I admittedly wasn't making the connection between Mother's Day and Father's Day. She said, "Why should you get a stress-free, kid-free, relaxing day of no interruptions? when you couldn't give me even a sliver of that on Mother's Day when I asked for it. Again, you can hang out with the kids for Father's Day." She then turned and walked away, leaving the kids with me. Am I wrong for being upset about it? My wife said I have zero ground to stand on because for the past several Mother's Days and birthdays of hers, I've worked and she hasn't been able to do anything that she has wanted to do. Her most recent employer gives all moms Mother's Day off and all dads Father's Day off, as well as all birthdays. So she's always had the day off, but I never have those days off, so it's difficult to do anything for her those days. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the idiot. You didn't even make the effort to hire childcare for her to have an hour to herself on Mother's Day or her birthday. You admit you have not done so despite having to work on these days for years. But she's supposed to make the effort for you to get magical alone time? No. You get what you give. You're lucky she didn't meet you at work at noon and hand the kids over to you then until 8:30 that night. Comment 2. You're the idiot. Bare minimum buying her a gift on the day of Mother's Day? Really? You do know you can take days off work. Or you could have planned for her to get a weekend off in May entirely and sent her to a spa day or something and made sure you had the kids for that day. Oh no, for one day you had the kids all to yourself, on the day meant to celebrate fathers. The horror. She does that daily, dude. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So after the whole Father's Day incident, things got pretty tense between my wife and me. We didn't really talk much for the next couple of days, just the usual stuff about the kids and household chores. I could tell she was still upset, and honestly, I was too. I felt like I was being punished for something that was out of my control. But then, something happened that forced me to make a really tough decision. On Wednesday, I got home from work a bit earlier than usual. I found my wife sitting at the kitchen table, looking through some old photo albums. She seemed lost in thought, and I could tell something was bothering her. I asked her if everything was okay, and she hesitated for a moment before saying she needed to talk to me about something important. She told me that she had been feeling really overwhelmed and unappreciated lately. She said that taking care of the kids and the house all day, every day, was taking a toll on her mental health. She admitted that she had been considering going back to work, not just for the money, but for her own sanity. She missed having a sense of purpose outside of being a mom and a wife. I was taken aback. I knew she had been struggling, but I didn't realize it was this bad. I asked her why she hadn't told me sooner, and she said she didn't want to burden me with her problems, especially since I was already working so much. She said she felt like she was failing as a mother and a wife, and that she didn't know how to fix it. I felt a pang of guilt. I had been so focused on my own stress and exhaustion that I hadn't noticed how much she was struggling. I told her that I supported her decision to go back to work if that's what she needed to do. But then she dropped a bombshell. She told me that she had already been offered a job. It was a great opportunity, with good pay and benefits, but it would require her to work long hours, including weekends. She said she wanted to take the job, but she was worried about how it would affect the kids and our family dynamic. She asked me if I would be willing to cut back on my hours at work to help out more at home. This was a huge ask. My job is demanding, and cutting back on hours would mean a significant pay cut. But I could see how much this meant to her, and I knew I had to make a choice. I told her I needed some time to think about it. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. I knew that taking the job would make her happier and give her a sense of fulfillment, but it would also mean a lot of changes for our family. I would have to step up and take on more responsibilities at home, and we would have to adjust to a tighter budget. I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. On Friday, I decided to talk to my boss about the possibility of cutting back on my hours. I explained the situation, and to my surprise, he was very understanding. He said that family should always come first, and that he would work with me to find a schedule that would allow me to be there for my wife and kids. It was a huge relief, but I knew it was just the first step. That evening, I sat down with my wife and told her about my conversation with my boss. I told her that I was willing to cut back on my hours so that she could take the job. She was so relieved and grateful, and I could see the weight lifting off her shoulders. We talked about how we would manage the new schedule and how we would make sure the kids were taken care of. The next day, she accepted the job offer, and we started making plans for the transition. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I could see how much happier she was already, and that made all the sacrifices worth it. But there was still one more thing that needed to be addressed. On Sunday, we sat down with the kids and explained the changes that were coming. We told them that Mommy was going back to work and that Daddy would be spending more time at home with them. They were a bit confused at first, but they seemed to understand. We reassured them that we would still be there for them and that we would make sure they were taken care of. As we were talking, my 13-year-old asked why Mommy was going back to work. My wife hesitated for a moment before explaining that she needed to do something for herself, something that made her happy. She told them that being a mom was the most important job in the world, but that she also needed to take care of herself so that she could be the best mom she could be. It was a tough conversation, but I think it brought us all closer together. We were honest with the kids, and they appreciated that. They could see that we were making these changes for the right reasons, and that made it easier for them to accept. Looking back, I realized that this whole situation has been a wake-up call for me. I need to be more aware of my wife's needs and make sure that I'm supporting her in every way I can. It's not just about providing for the family financially, it's about being there for each other emotionally and mentally. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.